Yeah, there we go. That's good.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, NFL Australia head office, American Football Australia head office, ABC studios, Budgie Smugglers, and currently Port Douglas. I know that intro was so perfect you might be confused, but I am actually not T-Mac. He has had a very timely holiday, but I am joined by the one and only Charlie Pickering. How are you, mate?
I am great. And stellar job on the introduction. Like, really attacked that with confidence, saw the gap, hit it, and you broke on through. Really picked up a chunk of yards there. That was great.
So no one will know this, but this is actually taking us like 45 minutes to get online due to the technical difficulties. If I didn't mention it, though, that would have been flawless.
Oh, absolutely. You didn't need to bring that up at all. So no apologies. This is exactly how it was meant to happen. But a big cheerio to T-Mac on holidays, hard-earned. And, well, I guess with the Packers out, he's just taken an early... He's in Cancun. That's all it is. He's just... he's headed to the beach. He's a bit banged up and hopefully be back better next season. Yeah.
Port Douglas and Cancun are probably on par as well. Maybe slightly less partying going on at Port Douglas. He's up there with his family, but, still a beach holiday.
Yeah, it's but that's the same as the NFL. Like, the players with families that are really settled down, Cancun doesn't offer them a lot.
No. Luckily today, we have been hit with some news, which I wasn't necessarily expecting this early, but Bears hire Lions OC Ben Johnson.
Well, I mean, this is great. This is great for the Bears. You have to say that he is he the hottest, like, potential like coaching candidate out there? He's the one that everyone would want. There've been talk even last year he was getting interviews for head coaching positions, and having a look at how well that Lions offense has performed through the rebuild, even spoiler alert, given the results of this week, he's definitely someone that, and you look at that Bears team, they've got some good strength on offense, but there is work to be done fully building it, protecting Caleb Williams and really getting the most out of him as a quarterback. And safe to say this time next year, we will know whether Caleb Williams, was worthy of a number one pick, whether the Bears have hit pay dirt with him, because you have a head coach like Ben Johnson. You're gonna know if the offense is good or not. You're gonna know if the mind behind it is actually going to develop the talent. So it'll be very keen to see, how that goes for the Bears, and then again, what the Lions do to replace him.
I reckon this is a huge hole for the Lions. Like, we're talking about this for the Bears and how good it's going to be. Ben Johnson came out last year and said, I'm not done with the Lions. Like, we got so close, we got to go again. And by this point, everyone knows the results, which we're going to get deep into the 4 games a little bit later on. But they came up short again. And then he's like, you know what? It's my time. It's my time to go be a head coach. What the Bears also really need to do is do exactly what you said, is shore up that offensive line and protect Caleb Williams. If he's not protected, having the best head coach might not necessarily help you here. But as long as he has the ability to call timeouts when needed,
yes,
he'll be able to keep his job.
But also, it is a big question for Ben Johnson as well. There is a big difference between being an elite offensive coordinator, one of the best in the league, and being a head coach. OC for the Patriots won a bunch of Super Bowls. McDaniel, like, he has had 2 goes at being a head coach and no good at the human being people stuff. Like, could not get the team to coalesce. Where was he? He went to, I'm trying to remember, he went to Vegas? Was it Vegas? And he also went to Denver and had terrible stints, one and done sort of stints as head coach. And so maybe there are some people who are great OCs and not destined to be head coaches. We'll see with Ben Johnson, but he does seem to be, obviously one of the hot shots that'll get onto one of those seats. And, I have a feeling by the time we're talking next week, there will be a few more head coaching positions filled, or very close at least.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Not the only news, though, for today. We had Timmy Gleason on the podcast earlier this week to break down the national championship in the college football. So Ohio State actually took this game out earlier today. So shout out to the two Aussie punters that were facing off, both coming out of Pro Kick, our mates down there. But James Rendale for Notre Dame had 2 punts, 51 and 46 yards, absolute bombs. And then Joe Maguire honestly thought he wasn't going to punt with the way that the Buckeyes were playing Ohio State. But yeah, he still had 1 punt, 51 yards. Did you catch any of this game?
I have not caught up with this game yet. I've got that, I was kind of avoiding the result right up until this podcast. So that's fine. That's all right. But I was pretty confident that the Buckeyes would take it out. I didn't get quite as emotionally invested as I could have. I thought about maybe watching Rudy last night, just to really buy into the lofty dreams of Notre Dame going into the game. But also just great, once again, continuing the growth of Aussies in the college game that hopefully, end up playing in the NFL, and that Australia to America pipeline where kids grow up wanting to kick the ball from the moment they can walk, and bringing some of that to the NFL, I think it's a great thing. So, well done to both of the guys, and, Joe Maguire, who's now a college football champion. That's incredible. It's nice to see something finally go right for the Maguires.
Very true. But yeah, it's a nice bit of hardware that he can put up on his shelf. It's incredible. Incredible for both the Aussies to be facing each other. Now back to what we do best, and that's the NFL. So the Texans went down to the Chiefs 14-23. Probably was kind of how we expected it to go. I'm pretty sure T-Mac called this to be an upset. Another reason he's probably booked off to go on holiday. This was his upset of the week. Actually, he gave it as his Any Given Sunday pick of the week. And we've been pretty hot on those, so it's quite unfortunate that the Texans couldn't get the job done.
It was an interesting one, though. Early on, you would have said that an upset was on the cards. The Texans actually started pretty confidently, and it felt like one of those games where the number one seed, who's had a week off, was a tiny bit rusty and didn't quite get in rhythm quickly. Whereas the Texans, who did a good job against the Chargers and came in with a bit of momentum, despite all of everything that they were missing on offense and all of their various struggles to get to this spot during the season, they did start the game pretty well. But the Chiefs are going to chief. And there is an inevitability just watching Mahomes work down the field, and also that Chiefs defense. When they shut you down, when their defense really gets working, they are hard to stop. And you have to say that Steve Spagnuolo did a great job of scheming this up. He sent all sorts of different pressures attacking CJ Stroud, and I think the stat that is definitely worth talking about is 8 sacks of CJ Stroud. Now, put everything else aside, if a quarterback gets sacked 8 times, it's hard to build an offensive consistency and get ahead doing that. So, a great defensive job from the Chiefs. And I think maybe one of the under-talked about stories is, we've all talked about how the Chiefs' offense hasn't set the world on fire this year, but they've won every game because their defense has kept everyone below their low scores.
And then Patrick Mahomes just continues to do what he does, and his streak of never losing in the divisional round. So the Chiefs are on their way to the AFC Championship for the 7th straight year. That is insane amount of winning that they've been doing lately.
It's hard for me to say this out loud. It's an incredible achievement and incredibly impressive. It's also boring. And so many people just want it to end soon. Everyone's done with it. But the thing, you speak about consistency, 7th straight year going to the conference championship. Also with great consistency, Travis Kelce, regardless of what happens in the regular season, he can turn it on in the playoffs like no one else. 7 receptions for 117 yards and a touchdown. And one of my stats of the week, it's the record 9th playoff game with 100 receiving yards for Travis Kelce. That's the most ever by anyone. He just surpassed Hall of Fame great Jerry Rice for the highest number of playoff games with 100 yards receiving. And he's still got at least one to go. this season. So, it is one of the hardest things to do in the playoffs is to break that connection between Kelsey and Mahomes. And really, we're yet to see anyone except the Bengals properly do it in any of those 7 years.
And we called that earlier in the week of the podcast because you said they had 1 week off. Realistically, a lot of these starters haven't really played since Christmas Day. That is a long break to have. So the rust was so evident in the first half. But we said if Mahomes is rusty and Kelsey or like, the rest of the team's rusty, he's going to find Kelsey. That's his man. And he absolutely did that as well.
And some of, like, you have a look at some of the tape, the routes that he was running it was jazz. Like, he was just making it up. Like, like that sort of Kelsey thing that he's going to make up a route as he goes along. It's almost unfair. Like, everyone else has to learn route trees and follow a scheme. And he just, like, was making stuff up and Mahomes could find him. And it's what makes them a devastating pair and so hard to stop in that Brady Gronk mold that when, at the business end of the season, they really do the job. Even as I say this, I'm starting to feel stressed about next week, but we've still got a lot of recaps to get through before then, and some celebrity sightings on in the Chiefs boxes.
Yeah, so Taylor Swift obviously there to support Kelsey, but she brought Caitlin Clark with her. Very smart decision on her behalf. Like, probably two of the most influential women in all of America right now, like currently. Incredible for her to do that because she knows she's going to get a heap of airtime. So let's celebrate women in sport as well.
I've got to just getting back to the Texans, who I think we'd have to say that the Texans, like, I was pretty surprised / impressed that they ended up getting this far, just given what their season looked like, given the injuries to Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, that they were able to get there. It was very impressive. And there's another stat. They set their own record, not one that they will like, but one that is etched in the record books. The Texans are the first team ever in playoff history to win the yards gained by over 100 yards, have 0 turnovers, and lose. And that hurts. That hurts. It says a number of things. I think one of the things it says is protect your quarterback so he doesn't get sacked 8 times in the mix there. But also just the Chiefs, they don't care how they win as long as they win. They don't care what is pretty or ugly anymore. They are not after style points. They are on a mission, and they will find a way to grind out wins when they have to. But it could have been a different story. I think the momentum of the game could have been very different.
100%. The Texans kicker Fairbairn missed a point after touchdown and also got a field goal blocked with 1:46 to go, which really halted their comeback. There was a little sniff. There was a little chance there. I'm 99.9% sure even if it had gone in, the Chiefs would have got the job done because they love playing in that high pressure moment. But the chance was almost there.
And it's one of those things, and I've got a comment once we've gotten through all the games. But there is actually, why not? I'll just say it now. You look at the teams that made it through what is the best, most competitive round of football of the year, and the teams that had no interceptions, didn't turn the ball over, no fumbles, like the teams that got through, all of them looked after the football, and they didn't have mistakes like blocked punts, like missed field goals. They did the basics and made sure of it. And the old adage is sometimes it's not about winning a playoff game, it's about not losing a playoff game. And as we go through these games, I think we'll let the Texans off the hook on this one because it's the Chiefs, that they're just in the business of winning playoff games. But as we go through, you can see that mistakes really ended a bunch of team seasons in this divisional round.
So what you're telling me is you protect the ball and you win games?
Yeah, that is the theory I've been working on, yeah.
That's mind-blowing. a real fun fact for you, though, and especially as someone who supports an AFC team who potentially may be in the next round, who knows, we'll get to that. But the Chiefs are the 4th team to make it to the championship game after back-to-back Lombardis. All 3 previous teams lost in that championship game. So they would be, if they are going for first, they wouldn't be the first to three-peat, but they first need to get through the Bills at that point. And odds are almost in your favor.
It's pretty narrow. I think it's like at the moment it's like a 1.5 point spread in favor of the Chiefs at home, which you may as well. That's even. That's pretty much just the home field advantage difference between those two. I like this stat a lot. I like it a lot because I've had some horrible playoff experiences watching the Chiefs and Bills in recent years. But we'll get to the Bills later on. Let's go over to the other Sunday, our time, Saturday, US time game over in the NFC was the Commanders and the Lions. And tell you what, pound for pound, one of the more exciting games of the season.
100%. This was the upset I don't think anyone was really expecting. So to me, it was the upset of the round. Commanders got the job done 45-31. And the Commanders are now in the championship for the first time in 33 years, which for me as a NFC East fan, now the Cowboys have the biggest drought for making championship games, which, we love. As Birds fans, we love. Sorry,
no,
Loz.
not the Birds fan. It's actually medically impossible for human beings to have any sympathy for the Cowboys. So it can't be done psychologically. It's absolutely impossible.
But for the Lions, I reckon they just had too many players on IR at the end of the day, didn't they? I think they said during the broadcast there was 18. You can only have 11 players on the field at one time, and you got 18 players on IR. It's just far too much. And the turnover battle, 5 turnovers for the Lions, including 3 interceptions from Goff, 1 being a pick six. And then we'll flip that, 0 turnovers for Daniels. Are we sure he's a rookie?
Yeah, is it like? Is it going to be like Scooby-Doo and they pull off the mask and it's Tom Brady in disguise? Like it's the composure. We said this last week when he took the ball down the field and won the game with no time remaining. He's getting the job done. He is so composed. He runs hard when he runs. Like he runs hard. And he can run through people, run around people, and his accuracy was terrific passing. The fact that not just that he's a rookie and he's winning playoff games, but he's dropping 40 burgers on one of the feared teams of the entire competition for the season. It's an incredible effort. And a lot of people are saying, and it's almost beyond question about whether or not this is the best rookie season we've ever seen.
It has to be. There's obviously huge credit to a rookie QB, but they've also got a new coach and new GM, and now they're in the championship game. This is everything that Harris, the new ownership, wanted going forward, and it's just played out perfectly for him. Washington outscored Detroit 28-14 in the second quarter. That's the highest scoring quarter in NFL playoff history. And he's a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, that was a game's worth of scoring in one quarter. It was insane to see that, but also to be able to do that and then mentally be locked in for the rest of the game. Not be like, oh, the job's done or we're there or, not to have those mental errors as the games went on. Just so impressive.
The Lions just really didn't have anything going for him during this game either. At one point, they had 12 players on the field. Like, this is the Lions team that we all said very early on that everyone's got like a little soft spot for the Lions because where Detroit have come from and where they are now. It's such an exciting season. I love watching Dan Campbell as a coach. I get fired up. I've never stepped foot on an NFL field. But I get fired up, ready to run through some people when I hear him talk. So things were just going wrong for him at the end of the day, and they just really couldn't get the job done. So my question for you is, did the NFC North pull the wool over our eyes? We had the Packers, Vikings, and now Lions all out of the playoffs and early with some massive records, regular season records.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that the Vikings pulled the wool over our eyes. Like their record through the season compared to their performance in the playoffs was just such a stark difference. It was that real feeling of a pretender in that wild card round. So I think the Vikings, you could absolutely say that. I think, look, the Packers, possibly we had too much expectation because they did so well last year. But if you talk to anyone, including T-Mac, they will always say it's too early. They're too young. They're not quite there yet. And I think to some extent, they got a season out of Josh Jacobs that was beyond what anyone really expected Josh Jacobs to be doing as a power runner a real bell cow runner and keeping them in games. That was a real surprise for the year. But there are still some big problems to solve for the Packers. And the Lions, I mean, it's hard. And this has happened. I've been there last year. We were calling linebackers out of retirement because they knew the scheme. We were ringing them on the phone and they were in their Winnebago on the way to Florida to come and play in a divisional game against the Chiefs because we were so decimated on defense. I know what it's like. I just don't think it's representative. I think, I think the Vikings were pretenders. I think the Packers, actually, maybe they were pretenders, but the Lions...
T-Mac's not here, we can be honest.
Okay, yeah, I think they were
no
pretenders.
longer a Packers cast.
But the Lions, I don't think they were pretenders. I think they were as good as we all saw all season, but there's only so many players you can have held together with sticky tape when you get to divisional round.
And that's just really the crux of this whole thing. We'll move on, though, to the Monday games, what I'd like to call the snow games, because both of them, the first half of the Eagles, Rams one, not so much, but then it actually started puking now with snow, and the Bills, Ravens was very similar. We'll start with the first one, though. The Rams, 22, Eagles, 28. Eagles realistically just holding on to this one. They really nearly blew this game as well, like they did in the wild card round. They had to win it once again on defense. A few more injuries as well, like Quinyon Mitchell went off with a shoulder injury. A couple other players were hobbling off the field, which is definitely not what you want to see, especially heading into this championship. But Barkley once again blew the Rams away.
Amazing.
Two massive
just
runs.
Incredible. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It just in my mind, I was just seeing him charging down the sideline in the snow, and just his joy. Like, this guy's been around for a while. I've never ever seen him that happy on a football field.
And my favorite one was his first one, the 78-yarder, where he was running, and Jared Verse was the one who was actually trying to chase him down, and he stopped and he looked back. The reason that he did stop and look back at him is because Jared Verse, all before the game, was like, I hate Philly fans. Philly fans are the worst. Then he got there and he was giving it the wave in the crowd, trying to get as much noise as possible, probably to get himself revved up. Fun fact, Jared Verse is actually from Pennsylvania. He lives 100 miles, max 100 miles away from Philly. They are probably his closest NFL team.
Wow.
And yet he says he hates Philly fans. I'm all for you buying into the team that you're playing for, which is LA. You've jumped to the West Coast. All good. All for it. You can't hide from me, though.
Yeah. That said, and I think, even you would agree, Philly fans are horrible people.
Real bad. They are horrible. Real bad. I don't even want to talk about what happened in the Packers game. Like, let's just...
let's just leave that.
Let's really avoid that. It's almost like, as an Australian being a Philly fan, like I was a Philly fan before I knew what Philly fans were like. And then you start listening to all the Philly fan podcasts and you're like, oh, I've committed here. I've spent thousands on Philly gear from all four major sports in America. I was like, I can't go back.
Yeah. It's tough when you're in a mob and you look around and you realize who else is in the mob. That's when you go, oh, hang on. Maybe I shouldn't be storming the Capitol right now. But it wasn't just Barkley Barkley's season rushing it's one for the absolute ages, like what he's been able to do on the ground. But Hurts also, he got his own rushing touchdown, was doing pretty well on the ground, but seemed to be hurt late. Am I right? Are you worried?
Well, so the Rams sacked Sam Darnold 9 times. I was like, that won't happen. Philly's O-line, Jordan Mailata, Australia proud. Hurts got sacked 7 times.
Wow.
That just shows, like, this Rams pass rush is insane. And they do need all the shout-out. Because they got another rookie who went off injured as well, and his name slipped my mind. He did his knee. That's not Jared Verse, who did incredible, but then went off and we kind of got a little bit lucky there. I'm not going to lie. But yes, Hurts pulled up very ginger, and you could tell because he got tackled for a safety late in the game as well. He couldn't evade anyone. His scramble was gone, which is a little bit of a worry. Like, hopefully they just... That
safety was, like those moments when a player is hurt, but they kind of don't want to show it. They don't want to show a weakness. They don't want to they want to act like everything's okay so the opposition aren't going to target in a certain way. But that safety, it was obvious that he had nothing to evade it. He just had no movement at all.
No. So regular season, we were seeing Kenny Pickett in that situation. Probably still would have got tackled for a safety, but we would have seen Kenny Pickett there.
That's right. Kenny Pickett can have that stat.
Yeah. But like I said, it was really on the defense. So 4 minutes to go, Eagles are 2 scores up. The Rams get the ball, score quickly. The Eagles, with Jalen Hurts being banged up, quick 3 and out, and the Rams come absolutely flying up the field again. I was sitting there watching it, and Mia, my partner, was like, "Can we leave the house yet?" I was like, "Well, absolutely not." When she asked me like how long's left, I'm like, "Oh, 4 minutes." 45 minutes later, it felt like of actual real time.
Yeah,
but then
it was.
Then
you must have been feeling stressed, like they were coming for you, like
I was pacing.
That it could all disappear.
I'm stressed now just talking about it. Like my heart rate is through the roof just thinking about it. But I was literally standing in my living room watching the TV, just pacing back and forth. And then Jalen Carter, our savior, came to the rescue with a massive sack on Stafford. Yeah. If it wasn't for that, like I know there was then he went for it on 4th down and threw it out of bounds. But if it wasn't for that sack, they wouldn't have been pushed back as far. It would have been an easier play. That was the play of the game, which absolutely saved it for us.
It was a massive sack, and he is just a terrifying person to contend with. Like that, he is just like every time I see him go out there, he plays with a hot motor, and I think so often, oh, I'm so glad I'm not in a division and have to face him twice. Like he's a game wrecker, absolute game wrecker, and continuing a long line of great drafting that the Eagles have had in recent memory. Like they've drafted some really incredibly strong talent.
And the best example of that is like Philly were last in pretty much all defensive stats in the 2023-24 season. And now come to this season, we're almost first in everything. Yes, bringing Vic Fangio had a massive difference with that. But before that, Howie did what he does and then drafted some absolute stellar rookies, both last year and this year.
And it's interesting. So the Eagles go on. They are going to take on the Commanders, obviously, in the conference championship. We'll preview that later in the week. How concerned are you about Hurts going into that game, carrying this possible injury, or do you think it was banged up on the day and he might be okay? What have you heard out of Philly?
There's been nothing that's come out. The Mitchell shoulder injury has come out and said it's not serious and he's expected to play. Hurts himself has said pretty much straight away, like, I'll be there, I'll be playing. How well he's actually going to be doing and his ability to scramble, we're going to have to find that out on the day. Little slight blessing, though, Commanders' rush defense isn't fantastic. So worst case scenario, if Hurts can't run, give it to Barkley. Give us a game well. Do what you got to do. Just probably don't run yourself because we need you in potentially 2 weeks' time.
That's cocky, but possibly true.
I said possibly, so potentially.
And just one other thing that I want to say, I saw some of this Rams game and was talking to my mate Dan, who's Bills Mafia as well, and we were just saying how much fun Puka Nacua is to watch as a receiver. Like how much you wish he was on your team, how much he just makes great plays and just goes hard but enjoys playing football. He is so much fun to watch. And the Rams, hats off to the Rams, who I think put together a really great season. They got hot at the right time and they came in here with every chance to win, and they really, there's a great foundation there for what's going to happen next year, for the Rams. And I think there's still, the force in the NFC West. Sorry, NFC West.
And Puka's essentially taken over from the wide receiver 1. Like Cooper Kupp had a couple really important receptions in this game, but he's definitely not the Cooper Kupp that we've always known and loved. And he hasn't been this whole season. So Puka's really like knocking on that door of that wide receiver 1 spot.
I think he is in orbit name. And I'll also put this out there. Might be controversial. Rams fans listening to this might get angry, but if I was the Rams GM, I would consider that Kupp could be some good trade bait for a high draft pick at the end of the season. You have a look at his production. It's not what it used to be. He's good in pressure situations, but he's not go out and win a playoff good. Maybe he's just banged up. He gets healthy over the summer and comes back stronger next year. But he'd almost be worth a mid-second to a low first, possibly, for the right team in the right spot that thinks they need that kind of experienced receiver. It wouldn't be the craziest idea for the Rams.
I think it'd be an incredibly smart thing to do for the Rams is to move on from him while the stock's still high enough.
Yeah.
And they can get what they want back.
Mm. And knowing that they've got a wide receiver one. They've absolutely got one. There's no hole in their lineup because of it.
And now we'll move on to the game that you obviously want to speak about the most. The Ravens get done by the Bills, but only by 2 points. It was 25-27.
Yeah, very relaxing into this game. I was chilled out for all of the second half. It was a great game. And it's funny, going into this one, obviously it was billed as the clash of the MVPs of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And depending on how you've looked at the season, one or the other is the MVP of the season as far as quarterbacks go. Obviously, you're saying Saquon Barkley is. But what was interesting was a lot of the questions over the two teams coming into it. I think Josh Allen's silenced a lot of the doubters about his ball protection skills this year. He's got so few turnovers this year, thrown so few interceptions. But the big question on Lamar was, can he do it in playoffs? He has a bad history of not being the best version of Lamar in the playoffs. Let's check the tape. Okay, so I'll get to the Lamar question in a second. One of the big story was, and we've said this on the podcast week after week, if you can keep Derrick Henry under 90 yards, 80 yards, you can beat the Ravens, and the Bills did it. Not only that, he only had 16 carries for the game. And one of the knocks on the Ravens when they lost last year in the AFC Championship game to the Chiefs was they weren't the Ravens. They played great all season. They were terrifying, and they get to the championship game and they didn't play their style of football. Now, they did. Derrick Henry ran it hard, but they didn't give the rock to him enough. They didn't lean enough on him, and it's one of the ways that I feel like the Ravens kind of stepped away from who they were. At the same time, though, the Bills, they committed to the run. They actually committed to the run more than the Ravens. They put up 147 yards, not as many as the Ravens, but they had more rushing attempts. And a Ravens defense that averaged 80 yards, stopping rushing for the season. The Bills put up 147. So the Bills run game did exactly what it needed to do. Keep that pressure on the run defense and allow a little bit of creativity in the passing game for the Bills. But you would have to say the big difference between these two teams was mistakes. The Bills, 0 interceptions, 0 turnovers, protected the ball really well and didn't take some stupid shots that were there to be taken. There was one point where Josh Allen was trying to do a QB sneak to ice the game in the fourth quarter, and he's got stopped at the line and turned around by the Ravens defense. And you can see him wanting to just shovel past the ball, do a lateral to James Cook, who's there. And I'm just going, don't do it. It's okay. You don't throw the ball away. And he held it. He took it. He got tackled to the ground, and he didn't take the crazy risk. On the other side of the ball, Lamar Jackson, he personally turned the ball over twice. Once was a terrible throw that was intercepted by Taylor Rapp. And it was early on. It was the kind of mistake that can get in your head as a quarterback early in the game. And it was such a bad throw and such an easy interception for the Bills. And that was the first time you thought, can Lamar keep it together for the rest of the game? From there, he played great. He really was putting together a game. He got back in it, controlled the ball well, was hitting some big passes. You would say out playing probably a more impressive game than Josh Allen. But then there's a bad snap of the ball. He takes it out wide. He tries to shift hands and do something to create rather than securing the football. He gets tackled by DeMar Hamlin. It's a sack. It's a sack fumble. Von Miller picks it up, runs 40 yards down the field, down to the 25-yard line. And that was a massive change that led to a Bills touchdown. It was one of the moments where you felt that the Bills, all right, are now far enough ahead that their game plan is working and the Ravens isn't. The Ravens have it in front of them. They can't rush the ball as much anymore. They're going to have to pass it. And then we have two terrible mistakes by someone who will no doubt be a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end, one of the best in the game. He's been in my fantasy almost every season that I've ever played. Andrews had two disastrous plays. One, he made a great catch off like a 35-yard, 40-yard pass from Lamar Jackson. He tries to break through defenders to get some extra yards, and Terrell Bernard peanut punches the ball out of his hand. It's a turnover. He recovers the ball, and it's a turnover right when the Ravens had the momentum, right when it felt like they were coming back from, I think they were 21-10 down at halftime, and the Bills just couldn't get it happening, and the Ravens were coming back and doing a great job. And then Lamar does a great job again from there. The Bills get stopped at the 2-yard line. They go for a field goal instead of a touchdown. The difference is 8 points. Ravens have the ball. They take it down quickly. Some would say too quickly. Great pass to, who was it? The touchdown pass, was it Worthy? Worthy caught the touchdown? Was it Worthy or
Bateman got one earlier, so it wasn't Bateman.
Rashad Bateman? No, it might have been. Kill me for this. It was either. I think maybe
Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, sorry, Isaiah Likely. Yeah, and they go for two. It's a chance to even the game. There's a minute 33. Yes, the Bills would get the ball back, but there's a chance to push it into overtime. They run the perfect two-point conversion play.
Perfect.
Bills broken coverage. Andrews all clear going into the end zone. Little pass from Lamar right on the numbers.
And it was soft. It wasn't a hard pass.
No, it was gentle.
Straight to the basket.
But it was a rainy, slippery night. The ball just bounced off his chest. And as he tried to gather it, you knew, given the conditions, there was no way he was getting that back in. Slips through his hands. It turned over to the Bills, who just have to get one first down and they can kneel it out for the rest of the game. And that is the game. And getting back to the point that I made at the top of the podcast, the teams that won protected the ball, and the teams that lost turned the ball over. And so no one thinks Andrews is a bad player. No one thinks, it's all his fault that they are not going to the championship game. But you got to catch the damn ball in those situations if you're going to win playoff games. If you're going to do it, they're the plays you have to make. And so I felt so sorry for Andrews. I particularly felt sorry for him, given that before the game, the Ravens tweeted out video of Andrews warming up in leggings, tops off, saying, someone's not afraid of the snow, right? And the fact that he dropped the ball in snowy conditions right at the end, it was a brutal, this did not age well tweet. And so now we're left, the Bills move on. I think they did just a great job of protecting the football, of played their game, and they did a good job of stopping the Ravens. And they had the motivation of everyone in the media saying they were too small, that they couldn't stop the run. There's no way they could stop the run of the Ravens. I think they did it just enough. They were just physical enough to put the Ravens off rhythm early, get ahead, and win the game. And now we're left with the question, does this affect Lamar's legacy? Is he the regular season MVP, perpetually not going to do it in the playoffs? Is he ever going to get this curse off him? Or are we not that judgmental of Lamar? Was it everyone? Was it a number of things altogether? What do you think?
It's hard in this game because, like you said, that first interception really got the fire under Lamar. If he didn't have that, maybe he wouldn't have played the way that he did. And that final drive to get to that point where it was a 2-point conversion, everything was done perfectly. Like, that was the Lamar of the regular season. That was MVP Lamar. And the Mark Andrews drop had nothing to do with Lamar. That play was called perfectly and ran perfectly. So then we're looking at, realistically, I can't remember how long was left on the clock, maybe a minute and a half. But if the Bills don't score on that final drive, we're going to overtime, and then anything could happen. You miss that coin flip.
Absolutely say, going into overtime, the Ravens had momentum in the second half. The Bills absolutely won the first half. But in the second half, they had the momentum, and you would have felt that the Ravens definitely would have been hard to beat in overtime.
And not that I like doing this because it's you, but I got to shout out Josh Allen for he might not have played his perfect game, might not have played like an MVP caliber game, but he played to win. What he did on his feet, him rushing for multiple touchdowns, he had so locked on. And then he got asked about it at the end of the game, being, you've done all this to get us here. And he's like, whoa, no, this was a complete win. This was a win on defense, offense, play calling, and special teams. This was not a win that I won. And just completely shout out all his team, man. I really like that and respect that of a coach and a leader of a team.
Absolutely, and it's the culture that is there is it is actually a genuinely special culture, and like there's been a lot of talk about you actually don't know which receiver to focus on because they've got so many people that are going to have catches. They have so many people that scored touchdowns, but it's all because there are no egos in the room and no one is the star. Josh Allen obviously is the star, but no one has the attitude that they're the star of the regime. No one deserves special treatment. And interestingly enough, I wish I could play the clip, but Sean McDermott after the game in his press conference was asked about the comments made by a Baltimore journalist that called Buffalo a city of losers. And
wow.
And Sean McDermott, a deeply Christian, polite man who I don't think I've ever heard swear. Right? Like I don't think I've ever heard him swear. He is always polite, calm, and nice. And he fired up and was actually pounding, like he was pounding the table, saying Buffalo is a city of winners. And he said, I've only been here for 8 years, but this is my hometown, and these are special people. And it was just one of those ones that the Bills 10-0 at home for the season, did not lose at home, and the way that the whole culture around it does feel like they have the right recipe of a team that can do it. And what you would say is, getting back to your point, Josh didn't have an amazing Josh game, but he did enough to allow the defense, who are the defense who've had the most takeaways of any team in the league, to get the ball off the Ravens 3 times, which was the difference. That was simple as that. If one of those didn't happen, you would say the Ravens probably get there.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, that momentum, and I'm the same as you. I feel real sorry for Mark Andrews because he is going to cop so much heat. But I guess when you hop in the kitchen, it's going to get spicy at some point.
I do just want to point out my whiteboard in the background, which is featured before, but I've got my to-do list. It's looking a lot better than it did this time last year. I've got win division, win wildcard, win divisional. So I've just got conference and Super Bowl to go. And as Josh said, it's a team effort, and it can't be underestimated what I've done to get the team there this year as well.
You actually got called out by NFL Australia as Bills Mafia #1 Australian fan as well. So huge congrats to you.
Take that, Daniel Ricciardo. I tell you what, Daniel Ricciardo, if you're listening, come on the pod. Let's chat Bills on this pod. I'm sure Danny and T-Mac would love to sit back and listen to that for a while.
Honestly, I'd just sit here and just be an observer. I don't even think I'd say anything. Just sit here in awe.
I tell you what, and also NFL Australia, if you're listening, feel free to tee that up for a bit of a collab. Doing shoeies and breaking tables with
perfect. That is
me,
absolutely perfect content.
That would be a lot of fun. Also, if he wants to get me on his private jet to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, I'd be willing. I'd be willing to take us all.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hey, we're going to get into this next week, and this is actually probably a perfect way to wrap this up. We're going to get into this next week and break down every single game. Well, the 2 games that are left. We got 3 games until we're actually like crowning a Super Bowl champion, which is exciting and sad at the same time. But there is the small chance still for any given Sunday Super Bowl again. But
yes, there is.
But we will get into that next week.
Absolutely. Oh, hopefully we can get that into that next week.
So massive breakdown of the games coming up next week. If you haven't already jumped on to our Insta because we're doing a Budgie Smuggler giveaway, you got to get around that. And Charlie, any final words?
Go Bills.
And go Birds. Let's go. Any given Sunday Super Bowl, here we come.